Hello, Jill.
Great.
Right, and I think we're good to go.
Great. Okay. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the April 14th meeting of the Design Advisory Panel. And I'm going to call the meeting to order here. Just a reminder, though, that we're also live streaming and the video is recorded for the public. So just have the introduction of late items. We actually have a couple other business items at the bottom of our agenda, but I would like to add to that two new items. One is I'm going to be away in May, so we need to find a chair for the May meetings. And then also Caleb would like to set up a time where we can discuss the form and character development permit area. So he's suggesting that we maybe have an earlier start time on April 28th. So we can have a little discussion on that at the end of the meeting. So if I could get a motion to adopt the agenda with those few changes, that would be great. So we'd like to make that motion. Kevin, seconder, Kate. Okay, all in favor? Okay, good, thank you. And then we have some minutes from the March 2nd meeting. And has everybody had a chance to have a look at those? So, okay. Kevin, did you have something you wanted to say? Put your mic on.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. With the first item, the one for, I think it was Victoria Road, I think. It was the first item in the minutes. And it says that in the motion that the motion was defeated, but I thought, didn't we have a second motion?
Yeah, if you look down at the bottom of the minutes, it's discussed there again.
Okay.
It comes under other business, a conversation ensued. Yeah, that one took me aback too when I was reading through it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
So I think remember we sort of held off. I was having a hard time remembering that too. Yeah, Tony?
Oh, not to be picky, I didn't attend the last meeting, but it noted me down as member at large rather than AIBC. Not to be picky or anything.
Oh,
don't have to change it, but just I did read them. So.
Okay, we'll just have Lori make a note of that on your.
Doesn't have to do that.
Yeah, they do have you at large. That's right. Okay, so that should be AIBC on your name. So have Lori take a note of that. That's great. So any other concerns, issues with those minutes? Okay, seeing none, can I have a motion to accept that with the one correction for Tony? And that would be it, I think. Motion to accept the minutes as presented then with that one change. Kate? And seconder? Jason? And all in favor? Okay, great, carried. Good, okay. Move on to our one presentation this evening for property on Old Victoria Road, and Caleb Horn, planner, will be presenting it. So you can go ahead, Caleb.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The one item on tonight's agenda is development permit application 1249. Oh, sorry. 1249 at 1030 Old Victoria Road. The application is for a mini storage industrial project with a total gross floor area of 2,666 square meters. The property is zoned high-tech industrial, I3, and the relevant design guidelines are the general DP area design guidelines. Two yard setback variance requests have been made with regards to this application. One is to vary the setback from the northeast property line abutting the highway from 4.5 meters to 0 meters. And the other is to vary the east property line setback from 7.5 meters to 5.0 meters. I will now turn it over to the applicant to make the presentation. And I believe it is Ryan, I believe.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you, Caleb, and thank you, Madam Chair. One point just before I get started is we have one other person that is apparently waiting to be let in. So I'm not sure who's in charge of that, but it sounds like we have one other person waiting to be let in. Okay, I think we're good. So Just a brief overview of where we started and where we are. This particular site sat vacant for a long time, mostly because it's a bit of a difficult site. It's primarily a difficult site because it was the site of the old historic Douglas mine, which then causes some economic issues for developers looking to develop the site. Those issues primarily revolve around environmental and geotechnical considerations that had to be studied, paid for, and understood. And based on these site conditions, the best option for a storage facility here was purpose-built storage containers for the purposes of having a storage facility on the site. This primarily revolves around the ideology that disturbance of the soil in almost any way, shape, or form would create very difficult situations, and I'm sure everybody can interpret that as costly situations associated with otherwise standard storage development. This included also having to have very little loading on the site due to the potential for there being mine shafts under the site. I'm sure everybody here being from Nanaimo knows that this is a frequent occurrence with development in the city of Nanaimo. We have been working with staff, Caleb, and then other members of staff, Jeremy and Dale Lindsay. Felt very good about those meetings and felt, I guess, without obviously putting words into anybody's mouth, but encouraged enough to move forward with the proposal. The reasons we like this site, or the developers like this site, is the location for a storage facility is ideal. But the other one that is very helpful is that it's already zoned for the intended use. So it takes a lot of those types of question marks out of the situation. We've done a lot of work on the site already. The work has been quite extensive. I mentioned earlier, did a lot of environmental work trying to understand what having a historical mining facility meant to development of the site. Again, as was mentioned earlier, geotechnical issues associated with loading of the site and trying to figure out how to overcome those potential geotechnical issues. Basically, at the end of it, though, we found that those studies and then the proposal allows for the proposal to be supportable with low site disturbance and low loading, with a single level purpose-built storage using purpose-built containers. We also went through code compliance analysis, in large part, working with staff and understanding, whether we were hitting the mark, basically, and came to 100 square meter pods in compliance with the building code. We also worked hard on fire analysis with our purpose-built containers, having undergone rigorous testing, and are used across the country and at the developer's site in particular in Penticton. Bit of a sidebar, but I think it's important to note that the developers and the proponents are experienced storage facility operators. In addition, we also had to take a hard look at storm engineering for the site. And at the end of all of this, we found that the containers that are purpose-built were ideal for this location because of the constraints associated, again, with the mining that created the environmental and geotechnical constraints. And I think it's really important to note that these are not retrofitted shipping containers. They're not traditional shipping containers. They're purpose-built containers, purpose-built for storage with sloped roofs and nicer facades and such like that are ideally suited, again, for this particular site. We also did a review of the Moti setbacks. I believe staff mentioned that. So we had a member of our team, my team in particular, luckily just finished working for Moti for 10 years. So she's had a hard look at the Moti setbacks as well. The vision for the site is to create a site that looks like a park from the highway. The landscaping and decorative fencing, where appropriate, the decorative fencing appropriate we've tried to utilize that to create a situation where basically as you're passing by, it looks like a garden site, a landscape site, and what you're going to be seeing is not the containers themselves, but beautiful trees and shrubberies and such like that to create a nice environment as you drive by on the highway. That being said, I have driven by on the highway and sort of tried to look at it from the perspective of imagining, what things would look like if we're ultimately approved and build the site out. And I think generally speaking, you'd have to almost put yourself in real danger to take a hard look at the site as you drove by. You can certainly see it, but you would see it more from a glance. And what we see right now is a nicely treed site. And while it wouldn't have the necessarily the natural look, but the green look would remain intact, and that's ideally what we're going for here. Again, the developers are experienced in storage facilities, and one thing we wanted to bring up, and it was from staff notes, Caleb, that we wanted to bring this up, is there's actually a reason why we proposed no refuge storage specifically on the site. Because of the experience of the developers and proponents, they became aware that as soon as you put garbage facilities in a storage area, basically what you're inviting is people to start using the facility as a dump. And so what they have done is in their other sites is instead have a daily cleanup, and then they have one of the lockers strictly for storage of garbage, which is then taken off-site. And this actually creates a much cleaner, not a site used for a dump, and creates a nicer environment for everybody involved, and doesn't become an eyesore for the people utilizing the site, and doesn't become a disturbance for people passing by the site. They also have a manager on site for daily sweeps and security checks to make sure it doesn't become a dump site. And this works very well in Penticton. The other thing that staff mentioned in their notes was a suggestion to have some collars, and we're happy to do that. And we've got some examples of what we'll be aiming at as far as adding some color to the storage. And I think we're quite happy with that, and I think it'll create a nice look. And I think Kathy from our team will be presenting those a little bit. And speaking of our team, I just wanted to let everybody know, although is that okay? Yeah, we're good. Sorry, I was missing one of my team members and what I was looking at, but it looks like everybody's here. So we've got Kathy and Mark, which are the developers, and they have again experience with storage facilities and are currently operating one in Penticton. Myself, I'm Ryan Anderson. I'm the owner of OTG Developments. We help people through the development process, and I'll do my best to answer any questions associated with zoning and such like that, perhaps with a little bit of Caleb's help where necessary. And we have Lane here as well. Lane was the designer of the site, and he'll be doing a short presentation to follow up mine here. We've got Jen Power. Jen was the person I mentioned earlier, who was historically an MOTI employee. Very happy that we stole her from MOTI. She's become a very valuable member of our team and very knowledgeable with items associated with the ministry. And Chris Winjack from LADR Landscaping to potentially answer any questions that any of the panel would have associated with the landscaping as proposed. And one final note, we did add lighting on the warehouse at the entrance, but the site will not require a lot of lighting as the site will be closed at 10 p.m. And the idea is to have infrared cameras for security and motion lighting, as opposed to lighting that can create, as everybody knows, light pollution after dark. So that's it for my presentation. If I still have a little bit of time, I would like to give the floor to Lane to just add to the presentation and give some commentary on how we ended up where we are today.
Hi, thanks, panel members. I was brought into about a year ago to start a storage facility and start the design on this site here. Kathy, if it's possible to bring up the kind of the aerial photo. rendering. We started out with the site, and we do the buildings not as larger pods or the low slung pods, but we do smaller pods, as you can see. Right, like that. That's a good one. And we've spaced them out into pod facility through the building code to kind of maximize the site and also to allow for driving areas around the site. In the northwest corner, we have a green space that we're trying to keep so that the whole site isn't totally filled with pods and stuff like that. So that's one area that we're trying to do more landscaping and bring up the greenery. Meanwhile, there's a whole area around surrounding the site, especially on the island highway side, that we're trying to green up. And if we go to the pictures from the highway site, and driving down the highway, we might not have those. One more. Yeah. You know, that's the type of view, and trying to hide from the highway, not to be much of a distraction to the drivers or anything like that. So we're trying to hide from the highway site the main single story kind of pods that we have. So, and any increase in the landscaping is trying to also do that from the highway side, so we're not quite distracted. Go back one. Yeah, this is the latest drawings here.
This one. This is the latest.
Okay, so this is the main building that exists and that will follow and upgrade. It's an older building that's existing on the site that will have internal storage on it. We're trying to put some signage and upgrade the outside, adding a little bit of greenery and just main lights on that building. You know, the logo on the side, and lighting on just the Douglas mine storage area that we'll try to call it and bring people's attention to it. You can see in the background here also the pods. They all come in a silver color, essentially. The pods are actually not sea cans that are kind of old and rusted and that sort of stuff. We buy new sea cans or new pods that are built right on site, essentially, and assembled from a manufacturer that we buy from. So it won't look like a old kind of a sea cans and stacked 20 meters high and that sort of stuff. It'll all be single story type storage area. You can go on.
Try and find this one.
Yeah. So the other item that we're trying to do is the entrance point to the site will be gated. We're trying to have some decorative fencing that was suggested by some of the commentary on the first view of the site. So we have a planting bed that we're planning to do on the right-hand side. And also we're trying to engage the people right away so that they're not driving into a neighborhood or anything like that. We're trying to control the traffic that comes off Old Victoria into our site directly. We have this signage, large timber signage piece on the left-hand side. And also we'd like to try to put some historical pictures and like some historical items about, mining operations and stuff that happen for the coal mining in the surrounding areas. So it's a little bit of a historical area or read and stuff like that if they're driving around. So that kind of concludes anything else. I'm ready to take any questions or anything like that. So thanks.
Okay. Did you want to go over the landscape plan at all, or?
I would let that go over with the landscape person. So.
Maybe do that first, and then we'll have the panel give their comments and ask questions. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So thank you everyone for having us. I'm Chris Winjack with Ladder Landscape Architects. As you know, I've been here a few times, and I was introduced earlier. So the landscape design and general concept for the site was talked about a little bit by Ryan earlier. The intent is to screen as much of the actual storage facility as possible using greenscape and landscaping. And so to achieve that, what we have attempted to do here is utilize a combination of native screening plantings, retaining a significant portion of existing native plantings on the perimeter of the site, and introducing tree plantings along the perimeter of the site to work together in order to create this sense of screening without planting trees so densely and closely that it just looks like a large hedge. Trying to come up with a more naturalistic form for the site was the intent, so that it does appear less like a manicured and intensely fabricated landscape and more like something that blends in a little bit better with the rest of the surrounding. So native plant use, as well as an emphasis on limiting lawn as much as possible. So one of the things that we've looked at doing is using mass planted ground covers as lawn substitute. There's a number of really good reasons to do this. It's lower maintenance, is a great example, but also environmentally, lawns are incredibly unsustainable. And so using ground covers that are drought tolerant and don't require the level of intensive maintenance and watering that that grass does is a really good way to limit the impact of the landscape on the site and on the municipal storm systems and everything that goes along with that. So in doing so, we're really trying to take a more sensitive approach to the landscape here and again have it look less like something that's intensely manicured. So we're using a combination of meadow grass mixes, mass planted ground covers, and some longer grass seed mixes as well in a sort of loose pattern, as you can see on the plan, with these large swaths, which will help break up any sort of significant area of landscaping, but also will have all those benefits I previously talked about, as well as habitat benefits when it's left longer. Behind that, where we have the fence line, we have a it's not overly generous, but for the use of the site, I think it is generous, and it serves the screening purpose very well. A planting bed that borders both sides of the fence that surrounds the whole site. So we're providing vegetative screening below the tree canopy that you are getting at the perimeter of the site as well. We're proposing a total of 36, I believe, 38, trees on the site, with the removal of 3 trees in the center portion of the site to make room for the gravel path or gravel drive aisles and the storage facility itself. Another feature of the landscape design is on the existing building, where we're looking at adding a cable trellis system and having vines growing up. That's visible from Old Victoria Road. So again, where you would see the building, you would get greenery on that side of the building, and trying to mitigate the impact of the views as much as possible. That's it for the landscape design. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, and thank you for your time.
Great, thank you very much. Yeah, if you can stop sharing the screen then. And what we usually do here is just do a rotation around the panel here and let the panel ask questions and comments. But before we go ahead with that, are there any questions of the city staff that panel would like to ask? Okay, seeing none, maybe we'll get started. Kevin, maybe you can kick her off there. Thanks.
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair, and thanks for your presentation. First of all, I just have some questions regarding the variances because I'm kind of confused where they are. I'm looking at the site plan, and there's the one variance that says relates to the residential section, and this is the main site plan. It's not the landscape concept I'm looking at. But there's a row of a bunch of light blue little blocks that are there that appear that they're, much closer to the property line than what it might say in the variances. So, and then there's one that says it's a full variance, like a 0 meter frontage, and I'm trying to find out where those are because they make reference to east and flanking and whatnot. So maybe Ryan or somebody can explain to me where the setbacks are when they look at the site plan.
Maybe the applicant would like to put up their screen and share their screen again and just maybe clarify the variance locations.
Yeah, I would like that, please.
I think this is Kathy Butler speaking. The first variance discussed is from the Island Highway, and that relates back to the Ministry of Transportation and the setback from the highway, and I can have Jen comment on that. The setback bylaws, from what we understand, is if there's a secondary access, that there's a 3 meter setback from the highway, and so we'd be asking for a little bit less than what is suggested here. But these are storage containers, and so yeah, the highways here, we're asking for a 3 meter setback. This at this point is not a setback from the property line, and what we're proposing is that we can remove a few of these and be in compliance with the setback.
Yeah, but what I don't understand is it says along the highway there's a 4.5 meters, so that would be that north property line, I would assume, along from there all the way along there. And so it's just that little strip there that at some point it goes down to 0 meters. That's what you're saying? Because
that's how we understand it.
That little block of those little blue blocks that come up to that. Okay, and then along that east property line, which abuts the residential zone, I'm trying to see where. Maybe I'm just not seeing the property lines. I'm just trying to get an understanding. That bank of blue blocks is the one.
Looking at 1044, Kathy. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Yeah, so it is the other setback or variance.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the other variance is that bank of blue blocks, and the property line, is it that? Yeah, I'm just trying to find out where that property line is. Is it that line with the little X's on it?
That's actually the fence line, is the little X's, and the fence line veers into the lot to the east. This is 1044. The property line is actually all along the green. And what happens on the land is this is a very steep bank. So there's a very steep bank all along here. If you were standing here, the bank would be eye level. You'd be looking right at it. So these would be our storage units, and then this landscaping, and then the fence will ultimately go away. This land, lot 1044, is owned by a different owner, and they are going through development plans. So this fence will disappear. This is a very steep slope.
Yeah.
And so that's why it makes sense to have our units and landscaping abut up to where the slope starts.
Yeah, it's just for some reason when I look at that site plan, it looks like, you know, you're requesting a variance of 2.5 meters, and you're saying that you're actually proposing a 5 meter setback. Some of those units look much closer than 5 meters, so that it just looks confusing to me. So I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to dwell on it anymore. But yeah, it just seems like something is unusual there, and I was just trying to figure it out. So aside from that, I agree with staff comments that it would be very nice for you guys to individualize these units and use color instead of the standard metal cladding that's on there, and maybe even you look at ways to like individualize each aisle, like with different color. Probably what would be best would be something that would be more earth tone in color, that might blend in naturally more with surroundings instead of something more contrasting. Aside from that, these are what they are. You know, we need these. It's a very good location to put these units in. Questions that I have is with these units, can they not be attached together more? Like, why have separation between some of them? There's really no need for pedestrian links between these. People come in, they drive their vehicle, they either load or unload their vehicles, and I noticed the gaps between them, and it's just better off to load them. There might be a rationale for it, but if you want to jump in, please.
Yeah, I can answer that. The pods are done in, I think it's 100 square meters. Or
100 square meters.
Yeah, okay. There's 100 square meters. As soon as we make a pod and attach it more, it becomes a building that we have to sprinkler. So that's why the separation is a building code issue.
Okay.
Otherwise, all of a sudden, we have these pods that have all this external sprinkler system and piping all over. That's how come we made these pods the way they are and separated them. And we'll be kind of having some, you know, it's the amount of separation and fire separation from heating one pod to another. So it's a building code item that's made it like this.
Yeah, okay, that answers my question. I don't think there's going to be really any septet issues there, because obviously it's a gated thing. So, they become those little corridors that, you know, what do you do? Do you put wall packs on there to keep them lit up, or you know, they become a little bit of an issue. But I accept your explanation on that, so I won't dwell on that anymore. So, where's going to be your main office building? Is it the existing building?
So the site will be managed remotely, which is how we manage the site in Penticton that's been referred to. So we'll have an automatic gate at the entranceway with codes for security for customers, and payment, e-sign leasing, all of that happens remotely. We have phone call and call service for off hours and emergencies. And so there won't be an on-site office. We will have a mechanical room, and we do have a security property manager that would sweep the site daily for a few hours. That's how Penticton again is managed. So that's the intent.
Okay. It's funny. I've never seen that before, but obviously that's going to be the way of the future. So I appreciate that. And obviously a lot of old people like me might not be able to understand it fully at the start, but we'll probably have to adapt to that. But aside from that, I would hope that you really think like this goes back to the finish color, the units and stuff, but ways of wayfinding and methods to guide people through the site with their vehicles and stuff. Keep that in mind. I like how you're making use of I guess what we can call public art with those signs out front, but I would strongly recommend if you go through with that, to possibly look at ways to use materials that are going to be, last the test of time. If you're going to put, it looks like they have wood on them and stuff, and they look pretty thin, and I think you might want to consider materials there that will take up longevity and be able to, because I really like your concept with that, and I really hope that you would consider materials that and even possibly, because on the one side it looks like you have two side by side, and maybe there's ways you can join them together, but aside from that, in the staff comments, it mentions the use of bamboo in the planting concept, but I don't see it in your palette. Is that something, Chris, that you can comment on, or?
So we don't use bamboo like bambusa. We are using heavenly bamboo, which is an andina. It's a different.
Is it more like a shrub?
Yeah, it is a shrub that has sort of a bamboo-like form to its stems.
Okay.
Basically, it's an upright kind of shrub.
Is it as invasive as regular
It's not
bamboo?
invasive or spreading at all.
Okay, good. And you also have conifers in your palette, but they're really only in the northwest corner. Did you consider adding any along Old Victoria? Because pretty much all you have there are deciduous trees.
Yeah, so we did. Part of the thing with conifers is just that they branch out lower, and so along Old Victoria Road, where we have the shrubs, you can see that they overhang the gravel drive aisles somewhat. Mm-hmm. And so it's certainly a possibility that we could look into. But we would need to be looking at conifers that are going to be narrower in canopy, which we were trying to maximize canopy size. So until you get a conifer that's quite established and you can limit up, it's not really going to provide much screening. But you can put Serbian spruce and other ones in there. So it'd just be nice to have some trees along there that, like in the winter months, it just aren't going to be barren for the most part. So the only other thing I think the only other thing I have to comment on is the buffer between on the east property line between that residential area. I really hope you can do a little bit more to provide more of a buffer there, because there's some areas there where we really don't have any buffer, if much of anything. So along that little strip there, if you can provide a little bit more of a buffer, and anywhere you can add more trees and shrubs, I'm sure Kate's going to probably say the same thing. Other than that, those are all my comments and recommendations, and we need these. So I think you did a very nice job with us. So well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, applicant can stop sharing their screen, then I can see everybody. Thanks. Okay. Angela, would you like to add some comments there?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your presentation. Again, another challenging site. I can imagine the conversations that you would have had to have with staff to be creative with these building types and siting them on this old potential mining shafts and challenging geotechnical issues. So kudos to working through all of that. I'm just looking at some of the thoughts around ensuring the integration with the neighborhood. It is quite a residential presence around there, so I do concur with staff's comments as, providing as robust of landscaping as possible in all of the locations that make the most sense. I'm sure like Kate will give some more detailed ideas on that. I wasn't so keen on supporting a variance that brings it to 0 for buildings along that eastern lot line. I understand it's a slope there, so that does make a bit more sense that you're not going to be impacting a building that might get built close by, but it's still a visual that's there, so, and it's taking away from some of the landscaping that could occur that could buffer the future use of the other lot. So I'm not 100% sold on the supporting a variance on that side. I would support if it's possible to, I understand you're trying to maximize the amount of containers. However, I think it's important to provide as much of a buffer along there as possible, and also along the Island Highway, without taking away from the design guidelines on that. I also do concur with staff about the entrance. It would be nice to have a sort of higher level of design for, the signage, a bit more robust signage, like heavier duty materials, like was said. And it is kind of a little bit awkward. You're coming down Mackenzie and there's 3 huge signs. So I don't know, like, how that might be possible to just make it look a little less busy and more, maybe just a little subtler, a little more high end, and just integrate with the neighborhood. I understand you're trying to advertise, but I think once people get around the corner, they know where they're going. So I don't think 3 signs right there are completely necessary. And apart from that, I was feeling like the design of the existing building could be spruced up again with a higher level of design on that. Maybe some wood beam gable, just some West Coast feel, and I'll let the architects kind of build on that if they support that. But yeah, just I feel like that building is a little understated. Could just look more inviting. And I do appreciate the homage to the mining history. I was going to mention that too, but it looks like it would be nice for passerbyers to stop in and if sounds like you're looking at putting some written history, which would be nice. So that, kudos to you on that. That would be something for the neighbors to enjoy as they walk by or bring their visitors by. So I think that is all I have. And thank you for your time. Oh, Ryan?
I guess just one comment about the comments that you were making and that Kevin made previously. I think it's important to point out that the property to the east is currently zoned R1 residential, but the OCP designation supports industrial development on that site as well. So it changes the interplay between those 2 lots, where right now we have an industrial zone site, which, as I mentioned during my presentation, is part of the attraction of this particular site. But while nothing can be guaranteed, the owner to the east would have to go through a process. But our understanding is about to go through a process that would allow industrial development on that site that would then change the way that setback looked and would affected the neighbor.
Yeah, and I understand that. I understand the city probably is permits zoning reduction down to 0 for industrial sites that are adjacent to industrial sites. Is that correct?
Do you want to address that to Caleb?
Maybe to Caleb, yes.
Yes, through the chair. There is still a setback from the side yard in an industrial zone, but when it is adjacent to a residential zone, it just increases to 7.5 meters.
Okay. Yeah, so I don't, I still feel the same way with my comments. Maybe something could happen in the future if that zoning does go through a decent site. Yes, Mark?
Just to add one comment further to Ryan's is, because of along where that fence line and property line is, that slope begins and comes down at an angle. Effectively, the setback is on the 1044 property next door. So there will effectively be distance between whatever is developed on 1044 ultimately. Just to throw that out there.
Okay.
Just because of the slope. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it creates quite a big distance.
Yeah. Yeah, just thinking of the visual impacts. But I was just wrapping it up there, so thank you for your comments back. And I'll leave that on the table, and thank you.
Thanks, Angela.
Thank you.
Tony.
Thank you. I too had some reservations about that eastern property line and the setback, but I think given the topography and the likely future use of that site, if in fact the OCP is recommending industrial, and I think that's quite compatible. From a general point of view, and from an architectural point of view, this is a little unusual because it's not the kind of building we're used to on a regular basis. That being said, I think this is potentially one of the better approaches to this kind of development that I've seen in a long time. I've seen a lot of mini storage, self-storage, and things like that. They're cropping up all over the place, and I guess there's a big market need for them. But most of them try to look like something that they're not, or else they just forget about it and just go with the standard utilitarian industrial look, and maybe throw a few bits of wood around for decoration or something. This one is really a very honest industrial, almost a tech kind of a look, particularly emphasized by the colors that show in your rendering. I really appreciate those colors. It's a extremely honest and interesting expression of this type of development that you really usually don't see. So I really applaud you for that. And if in fact the landscaping shows up as colorfully as it did on that rendering by the main entrance, then I think this could be a real positive addition to the neighborhood, notwithstanding the fact that it's a mixture of use with residential and other things. I don't think anybody is going to suffer from the idea of mixed use. In fact, I think that's where cities are going more and more. And I think we just have to get used to it. That being said, I think that the other comment, I would disagree with my colleague. I forget who said it, but that main building that's on site, rather than tone it down to a more West Coast look, frankly, I'd like to see it match the finishes on the pods, maybe even with some color. So that it really fits in there and it doesn't pretend to be something that it's not. So I think just from a general overall point of view, I could really support this project. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Tony. Kate?
Thank you for your presentation. I generally agree with most of what has been said. I'm going to speak mostly to the landscape, and I have a couple of questions. for Chris and or owners or developer. I see that you are retaining the existing vegetation that's sort of surrounding the property, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so are you doing any, having driven by the site, there is a considerable amount of invasive species that surround, so is there anything being done to mitigate that?
Yeah, so we would be doing typical invasive removal and scrubbing of whatever needs to come out, so that we're really just looking to retain the native understory vegetation. That's what we're looking to feature.
Okay, good to hear. And I really appreciate your efforts to not put in lawn and to explore using different seed mixes and low ground covers. I think that's great. And I really appreciate the project's concept of trying to make it feel like a park and in an effort to sort of mitigate the visual impact of this kind of development here. That said, I think you haven't gone far enough. I think there's a lot of room and space for more trees, especially that corner piece that sort of will be the focal point from the highway. Across from you is our little petroglyph park, which has really nice tall stands of firs. And I think you can mimic that height by bringing in more firs in that corner. And possibly maybe contemplating your understory as being more coastal Douglas fir. And contrary to some of my design panel members, I think in Nanaimo, we are well aware this was a mining town and we have a lot of historical reference to it. And I'd rather your park reference the coastal Douglas forest as a historical reference than mining, especially nowadays, as we contemplate what it means to be landholders in this new modern world and contemplating reconciliation. So I think, I almost feel like we can move beyond that kind of historical reference because it's at one point in time. And why don't you reference your historical reference being the vegetation? And I think you have enough room to play that up even more, especially on those corners. And I could see a few more trees near your entryway that would help mitigate the entry and form a better entry. So that would be my main recommendation, is you're moving in the right direction, go a little further and contemplate referencing our native ecosystem more. And then I also agree with the other comments about, we can see that you're already contemplating some of the comments from the staff to bring color or differentiation to the different pods. And I agree with Tony. I like the honest form of these pods and the low impact of them. You could easily see this land changing in the future because of how they're built and installed, being quite modular. So I appreciate that for this kind of use. And that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Kate. Jill. Turn your mic on.
Ryan, you had some comments?
Oh, I apologize, Jill, and I apologize if I'm out of order, Madam Chair. I just wanted to comment on Kate's comments. I don't know if people can see me texting, but normally if we weren't virtual, we'd whisper back and forth about the comments, and I'd make sure things were okay before I said them. So I was just texting the developers, and I just got their confirmation that they're fine with trying to add some more landscaping in the areas that Kate described. So I just wanted to throw that in. I apologize, Jill, for interrupting you, but thank you for acknowledging me.
Okay, thanks.
Marie, Madam Chair, may I interrupt this, Kate? I just want to say that to the applicants, we are just making comments, and you will be given them as comments. So, and you will be working with staff on how you move forward with those comments. So it's not a end all and be all right here.
Okay, then I respect my comment. We're not adding anything.
We don't need your feedback per se.
Okay. Clarify that.
Okay. Let's let Jill. I appreciate that. It's just I like to acknowledge the comments that we can accommodate, and then that right away lets in my mind. And I apologize, Madam Chair, if I'm out of order, but then Caleb can know that we're fine with in particular comments and such like that. Again, my apologies if I'm a little out of order. Thanks, though.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Jill, go ahead.
Okay. Well, folks, this has been a fascinating discussion. I really, really appreciate, Angela's lens and then Tony's articulation around, this is what it is. And I do appreciate the color. I thought staff had excellent comments with us rolling into all of this. And I thank you folks for your presentation. I tend to look at things at kind of an urban design scale, and, I will acknowledge what might be to come, but at the same token, I want to understand that there still is residential across the way. I'm struggling at supporting the variances, just from the whole scale point of view, but understanding that there may be an argument for them, but I have to go on record. Now, in terms of the landscape plan, one of the things, there's a couple of things that, and I understand it's a concept plan. I have not analyzed the planting material, but just in terms of the drawing, what I see, I don't see massing of trees. I see tree here, tree here. And so massing of the larger, trees, it really goes a long way in terms of integration into, like the whole urban scape. So that's just, one comment that I hope will be taken into consideration, just how, and I loved Kate's idea of, the looking forward and into the notion of the forest and how that can be nicely synthesized. The other portion that I'm struggling with from a landscape architecture point of view are the planting beds at the front. I mean, I like a commercial site to be a commercial site and have the appropriate massing. When I see species that are more garden, I wonder about the maintenance of them. So, just take that for what it is. I mean, once again, I love massing of perennials if they can be maintained on a site like this. But, we have understory and we have canopy and we have fir. And so whatever mileage we can get out of that to integrate what is clearly now more of an industrial site rather than a high-tech site, with the exception of the way you guys have spun it, which is, as Tony said, the way of the future. So thank you for everything. A step in use towards this site.
Great, thanks, Jill. And Jason.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for your presentation. I will be brief. Most of what I have had to say has already been said, so I don't need to duplicate it. But I was a bit concerned about the variance at first as well, but in analyzing it, I'm less so. Just the single-story height of the nature means, at 2.2 meters tall, it's not much taller than a fence would be normally, so it doesn't particularly bother me in this case. And I agree with Tony's comments that I think that the central building should be appropriate and related to the nature and the context of the pods themselves. So I don't have any issue with that. And I would just wanted to say I actually really appreciate Kate's comments about the historical nature and the signage. I thought that was a very inspired idea. So otherwise, I'm in support of this project and the variances. And thank you very much.
Great, thanks, Jason. Well, I can't really add much other than I am wondering why you're not adding fountains and palm trees like that place in Coombs, my favorite storage place. But anyway, no, I appreciate your landscape plan, and I'd encourage you to improve on the buffer. I drove by there today, and you can see up on the site from the highway. Maybe the trees are a little thin just yet because they're not leafed out, but I think more conifers would really help there. And I think the more you can hide it from the highway, I'm not as much concerned about the Victoria Road side, because I think eventually that area is going to be all industrial anyway. And I just think you've put a lot of thought into this, and I concur with everybody else on the wayfinding, fitting the existing building into place, and that sort of thing. So I'll leave it brief there. Kevin, you want to add something there?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. I just wanted to jump in on a couple things because I didn't make any, I didn't disclose any opinion on the variances, and I would just jump in and say that I support the variance for the highway setback. But if regarding the east property line, sure, there's a slope there, but there are things called retaining walls that people can put in. So if I was ever to support the east property line variance, it would definitely be that they look to increase the landscape buffer along that side, provide a landscape buffer along that side, because we just don't know what's going to happen on that side. Sure, it is ripe for development for a light industrial scale. Obviously, next to them is the church, so chances of putting in anything multifamily there is probably pretty slim, but you never know. But aside from that, the only thing I want to jump in on was Angela's comments about the signs out front, and I totally agree with her. I would like to see them probably amalgamated into one public realm piece of art that would pay homage to mining and do what Kate mentioned and provide a little bit more of a park-like setting, and but like what I mentioned before, providing more robust materials on that signage. So I just want to put that in there. Thanks.
Great. Okay, so what we do now is just figure out if we have some recommendations and then vote on our decision here. So we'll take a few minutes to do that. Okay, so to the panel, I'm hearing a few suggestions here. Consider ways to improve wayfinding through use of color and different colors on the pods. Does that make sense, Kevin? I think that was kind of your.
Yeah, well, I think it's two different things. Wayfinding is always going to be an issue on these types of projects. So I would say that look at ways to enhance wayfinding through the site, but also look at the second recommendation look at ways to individualize these pods so that they are kind of unique, either through color or whatever. And we could add that into Tony's comment about, or whoever's comment it was about looking at the main building and making it kind of like a centerpiece of the project. So I think those. I'd
almost see that as a separate. I was going to just consider ways to integrate the existing building through color and materials.
Yeah. Individualize them and make them unique either through colors or whatever.
But I was thinking the one about the existing buildings is kind of separate. Consider.
Okay, I'll let either Tony or somebody else jump in on that, because it was really their recommendation.
Tony, did you want to add something there?
Yeah, I'm just not clear on the wayfinding side of things. I mean, this is going to be managed. People are going to have assigned lockers. There are definitely rows of different colors. Presumably there's going to be a number or a letter or something on, something. So when a person drives in for the first time to find their locker, they look for, block A, row 6, number 42, or whatever they do, and then they don't have to worry about it again. So I'm not convinced, and I'm sure the owner from their previous one or the existing one that they have elsewhere has a way of dealing with that. So I don't know whether or to what degree this panel needs to sort of try and solve the problem that we don't necessarily fully understand.
Yeah, Tony, the reason why I mention that is this site is not going to be managed on site. It's all going to be done over the internet. So when people come into the site for the first time, they're going to have to find their way around. And unless the wayfinding, whether it's either through the unit numbers on the building or whatever, the wayfinding is probably more important on this site, unless for some reason I'm missing something. But I don't have to put it in there, but I just think that for the first time or two that somebody comes into the site, that they're going to have to deal with issues trying to find their unit. So,
but not to belabor the point, but isn't that sort of the owner of the site's issue to deal with? I'm
Awesome.
sure.
Yeah, I don't know. It's when I've used mini storage before. The first time I go in, I check in at the office, and they say, "Well, go down here, around here, and you'll find your unit." On this particular one, I guess they might be able to do it over the internet and say, "Okay, they'll bring up a map." Maybe, I don't know,
But nowadays, Kevin, they'd have a map on your phone.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really don't know enough about that to comment more.
If everybody else is on board, I'd be happy to remove that one. The key thing for me was trying to create individualization of these pods to make either each strip or whatever, try to make them a little bit more unique, and whether it's through color or whatever, signage, try to make them a little bit unique in that way. So that was a key thing. The way
fits with our form and character idea. Yeah. Kate, you had something you wanted to add there?
Oh, I was just going to say that I would consider the different colors a part of wayfinding. So that I like kind of is-ish, right? So I think it doesn't have to be that elaborate. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so
I guess that doesn't help.
well, let me finish these other things and I'll go back over them. I'm just thinking, so we had consider ways to integrate the existing building through color and materials. Consider using more robust materials on the entrance signage. Is there any other suggestions you want to add on the entrance signage?
I'll leave that up to Angela, because I really like her idea of reducing, because right now there's 3 signages, and I like her comment about reducing it to just one, and combining it with Kate's or whatever, with providing a little bit more of a park setting.
Okay, Tony, did you have something there?
Yeah, I'm hearing some support for one of my suggestions about integrating the existing building along, closer to what the pods look like. And on that basis, would we not be consistent in suggesting that the sign on the highway perhaps reflect that as well? Because right now it looks like a West Coast kind of sign with that slope thing with bits of wood on it. And I personally, I like consistency, perhaps to a fault, but I just wonder how far we want to go here.
I do agree with Tony. I was going to say that as well. I think I had the West Coast design in my head because of the sign. So integrating the design from the pods to the existing building makes sense, of course, to translate that into the signage. So maybe we could have a recommendation that includes consistent design between existing building and signage, and look at ways to reduce the number of signs.
Through the chair, sorry, maybe if I just may interject for a moment regarding signage through a development permit.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, freestanding signs are not actually approved as part of the development permit. So they may be shown on the renderings, but they are not subject to approval through a DP. There would be a subsequent sign permit. So as much as the applicant, I'm sure, appreciates these comments, they will not actually form part of the development permit approvals.
Okay, that's good to know. So perhaps we can just at least we voiced our opinions on it, and they can take that into advisement when they get their sign permit then. Okay, we'll take that one off the
Adam, sure, but really they're talking, they're combining signage with public art. They're paying homage to mining. So this, I think this is a little bit more public art than it is signage. So I think that this is something that we can comment on. So, and I think it could be in a recommendation that any signage, like with Angela's comment, to maybe consider it more of public art and not signage, because it is a combination. That's my opinion.
Okay, so do you want to propose a recommendation for that then?
I don't know. I think Angela mentioned it. Like maybe we don't call it signage, but I think maybe I would recommend that any relationship to paying homage to the mining through public art be put in into one element, maybe, or reducing it? And not using the term signage. I don't know. It has to be something there, because I think we need to make reference to it, because it is a combination of art and signage.
But we say that the committee appreciates their efforts to acknowledge the historical nature of the site and consider ways of integrating that into the site through public art or signage.
Yeah, public art. Public art, signage, and park, like what Kate mentioned. She said, creating more of a park-like feel. So, I don't know.
Oh, what are you doing?
Well, okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes?
It sounds like that might be a couple recommendations. I would suggest my reference to park and adding the trees and referencing the coastal Douglas fir is a separate thing from the signage.
Okay, so want to make a recommendation to that effect then?
Mm-hmm. But I would wonder if we can make a recommendation that the existing building be consistent with the pods, and any other things added to the site reflect that same character. So it's not signs, but anything.
Well, I think we have to be fair to the applicant and have some recommendations that are not so vague or don't make them at all. I mean, again, we have a record of our discussion, and I think that's, a lot of this is just for their benefit there. I think we have to be careful here.
Then, Madam Chair, can I just say that I would recommend that the applicant create or pay respect to the site, the history of the site, through pay history of the site's history of mining through public art with a piece of public art. That way, there's nothing mentioning signage, which the city doesn't want to see, and I don't know.
They can put it in there. Yes. Okay. Okay. So we'll recommend that the applicant pay respect to the history of the site through a piece of public art.
Yes. And you could put the word mining in there if you want, because that's really what they're making reference to. But
Excuse me, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I won't be supporting something that says mining. I don't think we need to reference that one moment in our history. We can just say reference the history, and they can pick and choose and work with the city.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
The history of the site. Yeah, I think that's a little less specific. Okay. And then, Kate, you're saying you should have another recommendation regarding the recognition of the landscape, or just is that covering it for you?
No, just that I believe with Jill and a few other people, we would like them to take this staff's comments of a more robust landscape and take our comments about using the coastal Douglas fir, the firs that are across the road, and increase the landscape. So that's just the landscape, nothing to do with signage, historical reference. I was just saying that you can reference the history through the landscape. Does that make sense?
Okay, so what about consider a more robust landscape and integrating more fir trees in keeping with the historical and local area? Historical.
Yeah,
site and
what do you think, Jill?
Yeah, I'm right on it, Kate, with you.
And the geography and the local geography of the area.
Douglas fir.
So you want me to name Douglas fir? Okay. Consider a more robust landscape, integrating more Douglas fir trees in keeping with the history of the site and the local area. Does that sound good? Okay, good. And let's see. And do we want anything else on more buffer, like adding more to the buffer zone? Does that cover it, that last point? Okay, so I'm just going to go back over those and see if we're in agreement on these. So number one, consider ways to enhance, we took out the wayfinding, did we? I think yes. Okay. So number one is consider ways to individualize the pods with color or finish. Number two, consider ways to integrate the existing building through color and materials. Number three, we recommend that the applicant pay respect to the history of the site through a piece of public art. Number four, consider a more robust landscape and integrating more Douglas fir trees in keeping with the history of the site and the local geographical area. And is everybody, yes, Angela?
Can we add to that last recommendation to put as much effort in as possible to reduce the reduction of the landscape buffers?
I'm not sure I'm getting what you're trying to say.
You mean the variances?
Yeah, by reducing the variances, you would be increasing the landscaping buffer. So I guess what I'm saying is add something to that effect, that consider alternatives to reducing the need for variances. I'm complicating it now, I think.
Well, we need to discuss the variance, and we have a few different, maybe we need to have a vote on the support for variance or not. And
yeah, because there's no landscape buffer variances. It's just setback variances. So I did have the recommendation that we didn't put on, add to it, but it was that if we did support the variance for the east, the residential setback, the setback is along the east property line, that a more solid landscape buffer is provided along that side because it's not continuous. So if somebody wants to jump in on that and recommend that, or because that's the one that I'm probably most concerned about, I would support the variance, both variances, if that variance along the east property line had a good solid landscape buffer. So I'd like to hear what everyone says, especially Jill and Kate.
you want to comment on that, Kate, first? And then...
Well, it's tricky because, like they've pointed out, the two properties are at different levels that they're adjacent to. On the east, is quite a slope. So actually, in fact, it does stand out more because of that. But so if we were going to ask them to increase the landscape buffer on that east edge, that would change their whole layout. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure about it.
Tony?
I don't know if I saw it correctly, but I thought I noticed on the drawing that whole east edge has a setback that looks like a maintenance area, a sidewalk or some sort. And I wonder if, in fact, that I don't know how necessary that is, given these pre-finished pods. Whether that could be used instead for the kind of landscaping that we seem to be discussing here, instead of a maintenance aisle. I don't know if that's an option.
I don't know. Does the applicant want to clarify that? Tony seems to think there's a walkway along
I can speak to that. There is an aggregate buffer walkway access path that runs along the back of those units. It's only a meter wide at most, is more like 750 millimeters, which would be wide enough to get you a hedge, basically, a U hedge, if you wanted something that was going to grow tall. It could be native hedging materials. They don't really hedge super well, but we could look at putting in a landscape buffer in that area. It just would not be overly significant with the current setback.
Okay, thank you. So Jill, did you have a comment to make on that?
Yes, hi folks. If we look at what's the name of this drawing, where all the blue units are shown, I have it blown up a bit. And I just want to clarify that we're looking at the DD small units and the bank of Z units. Is that our biggest concern? That's kind of the east. Yes? No? Oh, yeah, Angela, yes. So to the applicant, is there any way of shortening up the DD run?
I think the DD, can I just share my screen quickly again?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to show the fire one because if everyone can see, I think this is DD, and then this is E, and then this is FF. Again, this fence is in 1044. So there is a large landscape buffer here. The slope, you know, I have a bit of a picture of the slope. This is what we're looking at.
Yep.
There. And so there is that. What Chris was talking about is in and along here, to go back to an aggregate servicing on the back, where he's saying we could have cedar hedge or hedging, which would be higher than, again, it's a fairly low profile storage unit, but a hedge that's higher than, that could be a buffer all along here. To provide screening there. And, you know, again, the developer that owns this property, we hope we'd be able to work with him to have trees here and whatever is reasonable there. Again, he is trying to go industrial and is in fact talking about being storage. So, yeah, I think we can have a cedar hedge or something here that would serve the purpose of screening. This is quite a bit of landscaping right here. So hopefully a hedge would do what you're driving at.
Okay. Maybe you're gonna stop sharing your screen then.
Yeah.
Everybody. Okay, good. So maybe we could just recommend a landscape buffer along that east side of the property. Does that make sense to you guys? So consider a more solid landscape buffer along the eastern edge of the property. And then people will agree with do we have an agreement on the variance with that recommendation? Yeah, okay. So what I'm seeing then, we have 5 recommendations. So can somebody make a motion to accept with those 5 recommendations and support for the variance? Jill, are you? Okay, so Jill makes the motion. Do we have a seconder? I'm not seeing. Oh, sorry, Jason. Your face covered on my screen. And thank you. All in favor? Okay. Looks like it's unanimous. Great. Okay, so that will go forward in our minutes. And really like to thank the applicant for your patience and presenting to us tonight. And you're free to head out at any time now. We're done this part of the portion of the meeting. So thanks very much.
Thanks very much.
Happy Easter, everyone.
Thank you,
Madam
everyone.
Chair. Thank you, everybody else. Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks, everybody. Happy Easter. Enjoy your long weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. And just for all of you, I'm a huge fan of Old Douglas fir storage and Old Douglas mine storage. I am a tree planter. I'm happy. I was like, how did I not think of that? That being said, I do think the horse deserves some homage. And I do like that picture, so we'll be able to work with all of that.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so on to other business. We've got a few different items here tonight. Where did I put them? Okay, so first of all, in I guess the council approved extending Kevin and I for a little bit. They've got an ad running for more design advisory panel members because our terms have expired. So we are sort of on tenterhooks whether we're still going to be here. Anyway, I guess we'll be notified at some point. In the meantime, we have to act like we're still going to be continuing on. So there's those advertising. So that said, I'm going to be away in May. So there's two meetings that I'm going to miss, and so we're going to need a chair. And I guess there was a discussion at the last meeting about the possibility of rotating chair, some other option. I'm certainly in favor of us having at least a co-chair or a second co-chair or something, because I think there's got to be at least one or two people ready to pick up when somebody can't make it, or like last meeting, I guess Kate had to present, so then there was a real, we asked her to do it, and then we're back having problems who's going to chair. So does anybody want to maybe just have a quick discussion on that and see if there's any opinions one way or the other here?
I'll just jump in. May is going to be a real crazy month for me with everything I have to do to shut down my business. So I probably will not be able to chair. I'm definitely going to do my best to attend the meetings, but hopefully somebody can jump in and take over for you there, Marie.
Okay.
This is Kate. I'd be happy to, but I am cognizant of the fact that there's potential that a project comes through that I could be attached to. I don't know. I have no idea where they're at. So maybe if there's two of us, I'd be happy to say I could do it and have a backup person.
I think we need at least that. I'm a little worried about rotating chairs and the fact that new people, I don't think it's fair to throw them into the chair position. And so maybe the more senior members of the committee at least can take the responsibility of saying, well, they would chair the meeting, or at least two alternate people, because especially with you guys that do presentations, then that becomes even more awkward. So if that arises, somebody who doesn't have a presentation then can take the responsibility as chair.
Madam Chair, sorry, I should just report back as well. I believe at the last DAP meeting in March, our staff were tasked with just reviewing whether a rotating chair was even possible. So I just wanted to confirm if that was the direction from design panel. That is something that could occur. How that would occur, though, is that you would basically have to approve a calendar and who the chair would be on each date looking forward. So if that is the direction you wanted to go, maybe like each month it's a different chair, we would have to circulate a calendar and we could sign up that way, and we could do that by email. But I thought I would just fulfill the duty that I'd been tasked with from the last design panel. So it is possible if it's something panel members wish to pursue.
Right, okay. Anybody else have some thoughts on that? They want to do rotating? That way you have to commit then and know ahead of time.
Yeah, I think rotating isn't the best idea, because there'll be times like what Kate said and Tony as well, that there'll be times when you would be assigned chair and you're going to be in a conflict, or you might not be able to do the present to be there to be chair, and so I think it's just best to have a chair, maybe a co-chair, and then if one of those two can't make it, then hopefully they can find somebody else on the panel to fill in. So I think that's my opinion anyways.
Okay. Do we have Kate stepped forward and said she would be willing, but I think we need somebody else, at least one other person, if we don't do a rotation. It's kind of prepared to step in if there's another conflict like last time.
Yeah. I'm just thinking to myself about projects that have been submitted to the city and the timeline. I don't think I will have any conflicts, but Caleb might know. I don't know. He doesn't. Never mind. It's fine. I think for May, I think I'm in the clear. I think it's okay. But now I've said that, who knows?
Well, we could decide next meeting. If you guys want to have some thoughts on it, and anybody else wants to volunteer as a sort of backup person, we could elect, say, Kate as the co-chair, and then there could be one backup person sort of in the wings if there's a problem, something like that.
I'd love to think that I could put my hand up, but I really do need to just be just here for a bit longer.
Yeah. No, I know if they'd asked me to be chair in my first year, I said, forget it. So, anyway, okay.
Well, after, Madam Chair, after May, once I get sort of into like halfway through June or whatever, I'd be more than happy to be in there somewhere. But it's just leading up to the end of May that things are going to be chaotic for me. So just want to be careful.
Yeah. No, that sounds good. Let's make a decision at our next one. We can vote in somebody, at least for the May meetings, and hopefully that'll work for you, Kate, and then that would resolve that issue.
Yeah, I was just trying to be brave.
You are brave, Kate.
Well, I'm going to be traveling. I could offer to come, but I'm like, I don't know what my Wi-Fi situation is going to be all the time, and so I don't want to offer to chair if I don't know. If you're really stuck for a quorum, maybe I could try and deacon, but I don't even know if that's possible. So I think it's best to just say that I can't be there. That's easy.
Just enjoy your holiday.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, Tony?
I was just going to mention, and I think this is for the next item as well, that unfortunately I'm not going to be here April 28th. I could certainly give my thoughts, send my thoughts to whoever's the chair or members, all members, if that would be of any use. And I also believe that I'm disqualified for chairing because I think I'm the only member of the panel who doesn't live in Nanaimo. So I don't quite feel qualified like the rest of you to get into that kind of position.
Keep in mind, Tony, that Charles was chair, and he lives in Victoria, right?
I think so.
Jason doesn't live in Nanaimo, too.
I think so.
I'm in Nanaimo.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were in Vancouver.
I thought you were in Vancouver as well. Just on that point, maybe to Caleb or anyone, it is highly likely that I'll be moving a little bit north of Nanaimo. So as a member of the public, I probably won't be able to stay on the committee.
We'll be advertising again. Oh.
You'll be advertising.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah. Okay. Well, let's move to Caleb. Caleb, maybe you want to explain what your point was here that you wanted me to add to the meeting.
Yes, and unfortunately our council rep isn't here today because it was actually his motion from Monday's council meeting that, as you are aware, I'm sure there's an ongoing process right now of Reimagine Nanaimo that the city's undertaking. And as part of that, we are doing a complete overhaul of our official community plan. And we're kind of changing the format of how our development permit areas are being kept. So what the direction was from council on Monday is a request that the design panel have an opportunity to review the new form and character development permit area. It will, I think it's being renumbered. Currently it's development permit area 9. In the new OCP, it will be development permit area 8. But I assure you that's not the only change. So I think they just want to have that opportunity to review that with design panel before it goes back to council in May. So the timeline is fairly short here before it will go back. We were suggesting perhaps the April 28th meeting, which is the next scheduled DAP meeting. But there are 2 items we're hoping to bring to that meeting. So potentially we can send this around by email, floating the idea of a 4 p.m. start. So we could get through the 2 items plus the potential, just a small presentation and review of the development permit area. So just wanted to give you a heads up now. We don't have to commit to anything now. We'll follow up with an email next week just to confirm availability. But wanted to let the design panel know that that is coming.
Okay. Did you want to hear?
Caleb, is that the sandstone one?
Oh.
No, this is the entire OCP.
Okay.
Yeah.
So somebody's going to present on that, or is there reading material that's going to come our way?
Yeah, we'll have something for you. Probably just a draft of the development permit area guidelines in advance of that meeting, and there will be a short presentation, maybe just 4 slides from staff on that. And just to clarify too, we're not going through the individual design guidelines in detail and picking those apart. That's a much bigger project. This is just the development permit area itself.
And did you want to get a little poll or anything on availability for that early start, or?
Sure. Well, I guess it sounds like we've already heard Tony. It sounds like is unavailable on that date. Is anyone else
sorry.
unavailable?
Probably not.
Okay. So, well, what we do, we can follow up by email. I think it's probably easier that way, and then we can just confirm prior to that meeting.
Okay. So that sounds good, and I think that covers all of our other business, unless anybody else has anything else they want to add tonight. Okay, so motion to adjourn. Kate, seconded by Jill. Great, good to see all you guys tonight, and see you next couple weeks. Okay, great, thanks.
Bye.
Good long weekend.
Yeah, yes, you too. Happy Easter.
Bye.
Bye.